Hello friends, ciao a tutti and welcome to Art with Ms.B. Today we are going to practice how to draw rocks. We're going to do two different types of rocks. One is one block and one are rocks like a stock on top of each other. So I give you a couple of alternatives that you can use when you draw your landscape, a very specific landscape where you really need to represent the good texture of the rocks. The rocks are kind of hard, so do not be too hard on yourself in case that the exercise and the practice doesn't go exactly as you pictured or doesn't go exactly like mine. It is totally fine. This is why we do these exercises. For this practice, I'm going to use a white piece of paper, a pencil for drawing, and then a light and a darker gray. If you do not have multiple gray available, you can always go with multiple layers on top of the same gray just to make it more vibrant and intense, and you can use the drawing pencil to shade and blend on top of the gray. I'm gonna show you how I do that, and I'm doing this practice with marker just because it takes a little less time than coloring with pencils. But if you want to do with coloring pencil, go for it. And if you do not want to use gray and you want to try maybe a shade of brown and greenish, because rocks really come in really many colors, or more orangey and terracotta, go for it as well. I always like when you kind of connect with the practice and you add your personality into it. Just pay attention to the step, pay attention to the quality of lines that I use and the type of line. Best advice ever to be successful in this practice. And I know that for very young and beginner artists, because you're building your fine motor skills, it's not always easy. But you need to be very light with your pencil on the paper. So do not add pressure. Make your wrist and hand feel light so you can move it around with freedom. I'm gonna switch the camera and we can start. Okay, friends, this is my paper, space for rock number 1, space for rock number 2. Let's proceed. So we are going to kind of create a base, a foundation for our rocks, and we're going to use a very sketchy and I would say dynamic line. Okay, we're going to build a rock over here. Let's use the same type of line to go up a little bit, create a little stair, we go up again, point, we go back down on the other side, let it go, don't overthink it. Your line doesn't have to look exactly like mine, but an approximation of it, right? Now we're gonna start to create sort of a pocket. How can I say? Like we kind of divide this space into different pockets using the same type of sketched and broken line that I'm using here. So we can do it from here. We can create another pocket here. And then one going down maybe to create variety. And I am going to create some smaller pocket, such as this one, this one, this one, because I know that there my coloring is going to be way darker. Okay, once you have the shape, this pocket, we can start the coloring, and we are going to do first the darker gray. So grab the gray that you have available, and you carefully just fulfill these pockets, as we can call it, that you created, these sections. You can use like a really simple coloring technique with short strokes, like that. Don't leave any gaps. And then we are building up from here, right? Which means that we are going to go over with other grays and with the pencil again. So this is just our first step. And remember that, as we have been learning with my many practice on how to draw, and also in other practices that I shared in my channel, in art, and in general, in many other things, even in life, things that do not happen right away. Like, you need to keep working on the same piece and work on the different steps. So step by step, layer by layer, we will have a beautiful result. So, but if you expect that at the first coat of color or paint, you have, your picture done, you're wrong. It's not the way that happens. We need to trust the process. And even if you think that you're not liking what you see, you're gonna keep doing it until it's over, because many times you will find out that at the end you get exactly what you were looking for. So we're gonna use the same dark gray to go over the lines with the pencil. This one we don't care that much because it's going to be the ground, right? So let me just color it like this so we understand that it's not, entirely part of the rock. Now we're gonna switch it to our lighter gray and we are coloring the rest. And you can go over the darker gray, doesn't really matter. If you have available this type of dual tip markers, so you have a thick tip, just use it. So you're gonna do faster and you're gonna go over. When you color, look what I do, short strokes and change a little bit the direction, because this is a highly textured object, a subject of our drawing. We want to see a little bit of texture also from the marker. So we don't want the perfect coloring. A little bit of gaps, we don't really care that much, and like that. You have lighter spot, few like darker spot, and we like it that way. Now we're gonna go back to our pencil and we are going to kind of shade it with a pencil. I'm using a pretty soft, so the softer is the pencil. Let's say that you have a B2, B4, even more, the easier, right? And I am also not only coloring over and implement the value, like the shadow, the darkness, but then I'm gonna light it up and still doing some coloring on top of the rest of the rocks, just because the marker are very soft, smooth, and I want to see some nice texture instead. So I change the direction of my strokes and I'm super gentle with the pencil. I'm gonna force a little more when I want to see some extra darkness. So you have your guidelines because we created this darker pocket, but that doesn't mean that you cannot add the darkness also in other area or expand that shadow. I'm gonna give it some nice, you see, you create some nice texture that make us think of something hard, right? And bumpy. I'm going to work a little bit on this tip. There you go. And the secret is of not only the amount of time that we go over and over the same spot, but also pressure. You add some pressure and you release. This one is kind of a more basic type of rock, but still something that is definitely pretty accurate, right? And if you have to design a rocky landscape or include a rock in your design, now you know better what can you do to make your rock to look a little more, natural and reliable. Now I'm gonna go back here. I'm gonna go again, and then I'm going to just add a few more darker strokes here and there to add that beautiful hard texture that we expect to find and see in rocks. You can darken up a little bit the bottom. And this is our rock number 1, pretty much done. Okay? I would say that is nice and done. Now, let's do another example of rocks. I'm gonna build like a kind of, I would say 3 rocks so that they are differently shaped. So we're gonna use the same type of broken line. You let your pencil go. Do not close it. So we're gonna build our second rock on top. Oh, I accidentally closed it and I don't want to. So let's keep it over here. I'm going to change this shape and then I will have the top one. And let's close this one. You know when people stock the rock, one on top of each other. So this would be basically the ground, right, when they're standing, so we don't get confused. And now we create the same pocket that we created like that. So first, the bottom of the rock is going to be definitely way darker than the top, mostly this top. This one instead is going to be pretty much dark over here because the reflection of the rock, the projection of the shadow, right? But then I'm going to create beautiful, nice pocket of darkness. I like this definition, pocket of darkness. I'm gonna have a beautiful, nice cast of shadow. So here our rock is gonna be pretty dark. And then once again, I'm gonna dark up definitely the middle and probably also the bottom. Okay. And now we can proceed. I have a couple of other gray. Let's see if we can use. We're gonna go with the darkest one as we did with this one. We're gonna fulfill all these nice pockets that we created. You can outline them and just proceed to color inside. And you know, rocks can be really intimidating. And so this is like something to warm up to them. And they are not, of course, hyper-realistic representation. In that case, we should use just maybe pencil and shade that pencil, but they are a pretty good, reliable interpretation, visual interpretation of rocks that is accessible, so doable for different skill levels. Okay, mostly thinking about the beginner because you know we have to start somewhere. And as I say already multiple times in school, when I teach in person and in my other videos here in this channel, remember friends that we're not studying art in school because we need to become Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo or a professional painter. A few of us actually do, and it's good because it's that where their talent resides. So, and they will. But the majority of people learn art, study art in school because it's an extremely important exposure and it's an extremely important exercise on your fine motor skills, coordination skills, critical thinking skills, problem solving, and more. It's also very emotionally, it's very beneficial on an emotional level when we have to deal with stress, with challenge that of focusing. Art is fantastic because it trains our brain to stay concentrated and focus on a very specific practice for an extended amount of time, which many of the activity unfortunately nowadays don't do this anymore. And remember that you're learning new skill with technology, but that doesn't mean that we should forget important skill that we can keep in shape thanks to art practice. So this is the real reason why, luckily, government and countries decided to include the study of art in school. And it is also an amazing outlet, right? And a beautiful break from uh, from the other core subject. Now we're gonna go and proceed with a lighter gray. This time I'm gonna vary. I have a warmer gray, so I'm gonna use that, which has a little bit of brownish. If you wanna try and you have a light brown, go for it. Or if you wanna use the same type of gray, just lighter, like I did over here, you will do that. Once again, I'm using these strokes, large tip. I don't care like if I have tiny little gaps because we're going to do the work with a pencil and I want to see some nice rough texture, right? Because we're doing rocks and we're not doing silk. You can overlap, you see, with no problem, one gray on top of the other. Nothing's going to happen. On the contrary, you have more texture and the drawing itself is going to be way more interesting. If you wanted to see it just slightly darker here and there, you will just go over to intensify the saturation of the marker. and we set our base with colors. Now, let's go back to our coloring pencil, and once again, we're going to go around the outline, but also increase the darkness when we want it, mostly where we already set our pocket, right? They're sort of a guideline for us. And look what I do. I scribble and I change the direction of my scribbles. And then I do the same here, just releasing the pressure on my pencil. So I push a little less and I can kind of move my pencil around with freedom. And then when I want it darker, I will press a little more and then go back to a darker shade. You can also smooth it down if you want. Oh, sorry, I moved the whole thing. And then I'm going to do the same on the second rock. I'm moving my pencil in a way that I can move the direction of these strokes. I want to definitely have some darker shading here because it's pretty like underneath. So the rock here will be naturally darker. I'm going to color it with some gray and then nice. I want to give that nice rough texture to my rock. And if you think about it, they're just really scribbled, right, with a pencil. Just you need to learn how to moderate the pressure, lighter and stronger, and also change directions of your strokes. So this one is going to be way darker over here for sure. And here I'm going to add some nice texture, adding almost lines. And then my scribble. I'm going to do that same type of lines over here. And if you want, you can work a little bit on the ground, implementing that. And maybe we can use a little bit of gray just to finish as we did it on the other one. So it doesn't look like different. And so we have two different type of rocks, two different formations that you can use and include in your landscape or specific design when you want like a, as we say, this rock. And so we learn how to create some texture with markers and pencil. And so this is a mix and media technique. I hope that you feel rewarded by this practice, regardless the result. And I see you very soon for another amazing drawing practice. Ciao!